The Association of Indiana Counties welcomes you to this three-part series on strategic fiscal practices with a focus on the LIT reform and the MUST committee guidance. My name is Jamie Bolser, and I'm the Director of Government Affairs with the AIC. This three-part series has covered the local income tax reform, estimating revenue-neutral LIT rates, and this third part in the three-part series is going to cover the interactive portal for county and municipal revenue projections. So with that said, we're going to jump right in. This is what that portal will look like. And you can see here in the upper left-hand corner, it has a list of all counties. As you change and navigate through that list, all of this underlying data will change for the county specific that you're working on. The tax base that's under the county and in this upper left-hand tab is the income tax base. So what that is just the county-wide adjusted gross income. The units, there's 28 units that currently receive LIT distribution in the county that we have selected, which is Steuben. Down here, as we go through the rates, the county expenditure rate, for example, I want to show that as I change this, the county expenditure rate first has a capacity not to exceed 1.2%. The fire EMS cannot exceed 0.4. The non-municipal cannot exceed 0.2. The county fiscal body sets these rates, and these rates are all taken by the county-wide adjusted gross income, which again is this figure up here under the county. It's also the county income tax base on this tab here at the top. One thing I want to provide caution that, for example, the county expenditure rate, it can't exceed 1.2. However, if I type 1.4, right now it's going to allow you to enter 1.4. So we just want to urge caution to make sure that you are not exceeding the capacity for each bucket. Also be mindful that the county expenditure rate, the fire EMS rate, and the non-municipal rate collectively cannot exceed 1.7. So you just want to be mindful of those three buckets, the individual bucket limit, and then also the small municipality rate. Again, the definition for a small municipality is a city or a town that has a population of less than 3,500. That rate is applied to the countywide adjusted gross income minus the AGI for a municipality that opts to adopt their own LIT rate. So in this example, this small municipality rate, and we'll get through this as we work in here. However, a large municipality that is over or equal to 3,500, they can actually opt to set their own municipal rate for their own municipal taxpayers, or they can opt to be treated like a small municipal unit. So be mindful of that because that does change the AGI, whether it be for the small municipalities or that larger municipality. The total authorized rate cannot exceed 2.9%. So up here at the top, again, you'll see the county income tax base. These tabs will show you the total revenue that can be projected based off of the rates that you enter here to the left. So if I change the county expenditure rate to 0.4, you can see that that will change the expenditure amount or the revenue anticipated to be received from that rate. So I'm going to put that back to 0.2. Fire EMS, if I change that to 0, you can see that that estimation will go away. However, if I put back the 0.4, you can see that revenue estimate will go back. One other thing that I want you to be mindful of is the fire EMS rate that's in this category here and the non-municipal allocation. Those are individual percentages that have to be manually entered. So for example, right now I have a total fire EMS rate of 0.4. That will derive 5.1 million in revenue. However, of that 5.1 million in revenue, I need to determine which allocation method I'm going to use when distributing it, whether it be to the county unit, whether it be to municipalities that provide fire EMS, if there's a township that provides it, etc. That also holds true for the non-municipal rate. Right now in my example, I have 0.2. That will generate 2.5 million. And with that, I also again need to allocate how much this township, which the first township is Clear Lake Township, I just put in 1%. 1% of the overall 0.2 that's generated, or the 2.5 that's generated from the 0.2% rate, will allow this township to be whole and actually exceed that by $9,549. So I've gone through and I've just allocated different rates just to see, if the overall objective is to make sure each underlying unit can be revenue neutral. I'm just typing in a percentage amount that allows for that for all these townships. And then also, don't forget that school corporations are specifically excluded, as are counties and municipalities, from this non-municipal rate. So that non-municipal rate applies specifically to units such as libraries and townships, but it does specifically exclude counties, cities and towns, and school districts. So since it does include libraries and special districts, like say, for example, a solid waste district, I went ahead and just allocated a percentage to ensure that I have 100% allocated there. If overall you feel like you're collecting too much revenue, you can just change this to 0.15 or 0.1, and it will automatically adjust the amount that it will generate, but you do need to make sure that you fill in the specific allocation buckets. So let's keep that at 0.2 for this example right now. And you can see that there are error checks down here at the bottom just to make sure you have filled in 100% and you have allocated 100%. So if I change this 30% to 0, you can see it changes the 70%. And it also shows that I need to still allocate 766,000. So we're going to change that back to 30 so that those error checks are back to green. Now, for the small municipality rate, let's go through here and check some different scenarios here as well. So for Steuben, it looks like we have one city or town that is over that population threshold, and that is Angola. So right now, I show Angola with a rate of 0.8% for their municipal rate only. That 0.8% will generate approximately 4.7 million. I'm sorry. That 0.8 will generate 2.1 million. Let's just type it in at 1.2. You can see that Angola, at its max capacity of 1.2 for what they can adopt themselves, would still leave them approximately $1.4 million shy. However, currently, if they're receiving public safety, let's just say that they could get 50% of that fire allocation. Well, with that 50%, you can see that 1.2 now is generating too much revenue. So we could back that down to 0.8, and then that would make them revenue neutral, but they would also have the ability to grow from 0.8 to 1.2 based off of what their service needs are. We're going to keep it at 0.8 for right now. The other caveat with this portal is if Angola was to opt to be treated like a small municipality, this is where they would opt in. If they opted in, I just want to make sure you could see the difference in, let's just use Ashley, civil town of 1,026 population. If Angola is opted out, they would be set to receive 544,461 with their fire allocation of 5%. However, if they opt in, you see that these amounts change based off of Angola opting in or out. So again, you may want to make this say 0.8. It looks like that's still generating plenty of revenue for 0.8. So let's even see if we do this at 0.6. It looks like you have a couple small ones that may may not make at 0.6, at least revenue neutral. But again, there's some key financial information that you may want to also obtain to see if they need to be revenue neutral or not, since that'll be a county decision. Here is Angola in this example. They have opted out, but if I opt them in, you can just see what some of those revenue projections do. So opted in, Ashley Civil-Town would get 443. If they opt out, they would get a little bit more at 457. So again, right now in this example, we're going to leave the small municipal rate at 0.7. We are going to say 0.7. Angola is opting out. They can adopt their own municipal rate. Let's make it 0.8. They can be whole with 0.8 and a fire allocation distribution. The overall county generated rate would be 1.5%. It would be 1.5% for the county-wide, less the population in Angola. So the non-municipal taxpayers and all other municipal taxpayers would pay 1.5%. However, Angola, since they've opted out in this example, they would have a 1.6 municipality rate compared to the other areas, because they're charging just the Angola civil residents in this example. So those are just some key caveats of this portal. Again, just be very cautious that if we go 1.2 here, we go 0.4 and 0.2, that actually, while the overall county authorized rate is less than 2.9, we know that these three combined cannot be more than 1.7. So we do need to make that adjustment. And we don't want one bucket to be more than what's allocated as the capacity. So we just want to be mindful of that. However, this does give you that flexibility to say, even if the small municipality rate is 0.2, what that would look like, how you could redistribute the fire EMS portion. And you can see in some of these examples, if the county council adopts a 0.2 rate and Angola opts in, they still would not be made whole at a 0.2 rate. So that's going to give Angola something to think about on what their goals are as far as being revenue neutral as well. But it allows so many different options, but we did want you to be very mindful as you're working through those options. So with that, we appreciate you joining our series. Please join us for your virtual district meeting, because we will go through this even at a deeper level to show you the complexities for the county specific within those district meetings or during those district meetings. We also have scheduled a budget and finance 2 course on May 18th during the Auditors Association conference, where we'll also provide additional information, as well as June 13th at the County Council Association meeting. That's State Board of Accounts called meeting. And then a course again at those individual district meetings that you should have all received your invitation to. Thank you for participating in this 3-part series. We do appreciate it. And until we see you again soon.